correspondence. Let's start with our elementary school rep, please.
Was that okay?
Already coming up is Ella Robinson, a third grader, and today's Polis is right over here. We're going to adjust this corner. And these are the practicing trios. And we want to bring your attention to Ella's project over here. She will talk about that in her write-up. This is Jupiter, and she will talk about it. Sorry, some of it isn't in full view of some people, but it's right here.
And I am a student in Mrs. Miller's third grade class. I'm Ella Robinson and I'm a student in Mrs. Miller's third grade class. We would like you to know some things about East Palm Elementary School. I am a member of Student Council. My classmates voted for me and one other student to represent their class. We meet monthly to talk about things like the third grade student surveys, recess equipment, and the noise level in the cafeteria. All the student members report back to their classes and the third grade students also share with each other. All third grade students are studying the plan for our solar system unit. We had to make a null of our chosen plan. I chose Jupiter. Did you know that the great red spot on Jupiter is 15,500 miles across? It is the fifth planet from the sun and the largest in our solar system, with over 60 moons. These are our favorite books. I like our Wimpy Kids series because it is so funny. The last draw was about all these bad things happening to Gray, the main character. At the end of the book, the little brother Clear was linked up into a tree and Gray kind of climbed the tree to get it. I like the book series about the candy fairies. Coco the chocolate fairy goes to a chocolate ball with Nellie, her friend, the caramel fairy. They have fun adventures, but sometimes they have disasters too, like when Coco lost her wand. We have great special classes. June is my favorite special because we get to exercise and do jump rope for heart. Some kids, when they are born, they have heart disease. We jump rope and donate money to the Heart Association, so we'll help these children be healthy. I got this step lane for participating. My favorite special is gym too. It is fun. I like running and getting exercise. We have gym on Tuesdays after lunch. Thank you for inviting us to your meeting.
Ella, that was wonderful. Your parents and teachers and principals can be very proud of you, because we are. Anyone have any questions or comments for our first, our elementary school students, our first speakers tonight? Thank you, and thank you for coming out on such a cold night to tell us about your wonderful school.
You're welcome.
Middle school reps, please. Hello. Hello. You are? Could you tell us your name?
Oh, sorry. I'm Jack Operator and
Nice to see you.
Upcoming activities include Spirit Week. Monday was Fashion Disaster Day. Today, Tuesday, was Twin Day. Tomorrow, Wednesday, is Crazy Sock and Shoe Day. Thursday is Hail Ray Day. And also on Thursday, we will be having a pep rally. The Snowball Dance is coming up on Friday, February 21st. We will be having a dodgeball tournament on Friday, February 28th, the following week. There will be an open mic night on March 14th, and the show Annie will be on March 21st and 22nd.
This is for Miss Bernard, who is a gifted and talented teacher. It's well, first we have the Kids Look quiz. 60 kids competed for the 16 spots. The competition was on January 31st at Central Connecticut State University. 12 kids came home with hardcover books and 2 with cash prizes. All 4 teams finished in the top 10. Wow. Mock trial competed on January 23rd at John Winthrop Middle School, and attorneys Flanagan, Parrott, and Budzik volunteered to work with the kids. We ended up with a win on the country side. In the inventing convention, starting next week, there are over 100 kids competing. Jack Rogerson was a big winner last year. He trademarked the round hot dog bun and made an appearance on the radio show NPR. In addition to the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, we are still waiting for feedback. Out of State of Mind started recently. They are competing on March 29th at Bristol Eastern High School, and the debate team started recently. They're competing in April at John Winthrop Middle School. The day is still to be determined.
Cool Schools recently came to interview some people. It was a huge success. Many people were interviewed, and almost all were featured on the segment. They included many different things in the school, like the variety show and 8th grade letters. And we have the clips.
From the video game Skyrim.
I've been in percussion ensembles in 6th grade. It's like favorite part of the day. I love coming to percussion ensemble, playing drums. It's like favorite thing ever.
An extracurricular activity, these students extend their school week by participating.
It's a group we created 3 years ago. I started as a percussion major and moved into history, but it's been a passion. So I had a bunch of kids that are really excited to play, and so we spend Fridays after school learning percussion.
We try to put in as much time as we can and fit in rehearsal and practice and go over pieces, and we just try to do that as much as we can.
While not part of a music class or band, they still can be heard.
We play at the band concerts, but as the group's gotten more advanced, we're moving into other performance opportunities.
For Cool Schools, Mark Dixon, Channel 3, Eyewitness News.
Is a community service group for the town of East Haddam as well as the school community.
These students are volunteers, leaders in service, giving back.
Teachers and students, they all get into the spirit of helping others in need, and it's really amazing.
They do fundraisers for local organizations.
We raise lots of money. We raised over $2,000 last year. We raised over 5,000 items of food, and that was in a 2-week period.
All the items go to the East Haddam Food Bank. It's a school-wide initiative.
We have a point system. The more expensive the product, like cereals, sauces, and that sort of thing, is worth more points for the kids, and we have a point board in our schools.
It's all about packing the principal's office with high-quality items.
Our school is so competitive in like the best way possible. It's a great thing, and at the end of the day, it isn't about
what we got out of it is what everyone else gets out of it.
The drive culminates in March. Homerooms, different grades, they try to outdo one another.
We're here because we have a little bit of a competition when we do the food drive between myself and Mr. Anderson among some other teachers. And I'm just here to say that we're going to win.
Quite a game riles up the kids in the different classes.
The funny thing is, a lot of the kids think I win every year, and I've only actually won once. When I talk about the game, that people think that I always win, I really never do. I always convince someone else to beat me.
And Mr. Anderson, Mr. Riccio are good time friends. Mr. Anderson gets the whole school going with the competition. He gets every Friday in the morning news show. He gets on the morning news show saying, "Oh, we're gonna win, and we beat him last year."
Despite the competition, I think it's very important that every family gets what they need.
For Cool Schools, Mark Dixon, Channel 3, Eyewitness News.
It's at 6:41 and good morning. Time now for our final installment of Cool Schools from the Nathan Hale Ray Middle School in Moodus. A big event happens there annually and garners lots of involvement from the kids. Channel 3's Mark Dixon has more as he highlights their variety show.
Yay, Cool Schools.
I started it as a fundraiser when I coached the cheerleaders here, and it helped raise funds for our summer camp and pom-poms, things like that. But over the years, it grew and grew so big that my cheerleader parents and I could not handle the popularity.
Now in its 15th year, Impact, the parent-teacher organization, now helps run the variety show. Money raised goes to the entire school.
And we have 2 days of auditions, one for the 4th and 5th graders, and then 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And I have a whole panel of professionals, so to speak, and so that there's no favoritism.
Not a talent show. They have magicians, singing, dancing, acrobats. It happens in November, has 2 runs, a Friday matinee, then a Saturday evening performance.
People ringing bells. We've had the alphabet burped. That was one of my favorites.
This act lasted 1 minute and 12 seconds. It included tumbling and aerials.
Well, we're gymnasts, and it's just fun showing everybody what we can do.
Meanwhile, Abby showed off her skills in a different way.
Last time I did a dance with my friends, but this time I got to really do what I love, and I looped for the very first time, and I showed everybody what I could do.
She also performed with her brothers in a band. Anna, in addition to performing, also was paired with an 8th grader to play the role of co-host.
We introduced like some of the acts, and we just kind of like told people what was going on.
She also helped with costume and staging.
Every year a 7th grade student is picked, and the 7th grade student carries on to 8th grade, and then they get a new partner with them.
What a great performance. For Cool Schools, Mark Dixon, Channel 3, Eyewitness News.
It is Friday. Friday means it's time to feature another Cool School. Channel 3's Mark Dixon highlights how the Nathan Hale Ray Middle School in Moodus celebrates Veterans Day.
Yay, Cool Schools.
On Veterans Day, and on that Monday, it used to be where we would have the day off. But the last few years now, we've been having a Veterans Day celebration.
It's now something that has become a tradition.
One of the 4th grade teachers, Joe Van Degen, we helped put together a celebration of veterans. We have veterans come in, we have slideshows, we have pictures of the children bring in pictures of their veterans.
Jared has known Mr. Hyatt for over a decade. They served in Iraq together. He attends the celebration.
In 2005, I was in Iraq. My Humvee got blown up, and I got medevac back to Bethesda, Maryland.
Jared comes to share his story of how he lost both of his legs.
I think the initial shock of them seeing me walk in is always interesting.
How do they react?
It's a lot of stares, a lot of points.
They encourage questions from the students.
Do you still play sports with the legs that you have now?
And to have someone like Jared come into the classroom in particular and talk with the kids. He was wounded over there, and for them to see someone, that, no kidding, this happened, and this is real stuff, and it gives them a good visual and a good idea of what else is going on.
On Veterans Day, each grade level participates in a different way. During an assembly, Kate read from a poem from an unknown author.
I am the flag of the United States of America. My name is Old Glory.
Meanwhile, Cole had family members visit.
My father and grandfather came in, and other parents that are veterans came in, talked about what service they did, all this sort of stuff. I saw a lot of kids like pop awake when they started talking about things that are really interesting. It's probably one of the best experiences I've ever had at this school.
For Cool Schools, Mark Tex at Channel 3, Eyewitness News.
Very impressive. Thank you for sharing that. Some board members may not have seen that. I was thrilled, and I know everyone else was. Any comments or questions for our middle schoolers? Thank you both very much for coming tonight. Hale-Ray High?
We're very sorry for our absence last month, but we were studying hard for our midterm exams. So this month, on February 12th, CAP Scholar and Parent Breakfast Cafe will be from 7:45 to 9 a.m. The snow date will be February 13th. And also, Hale-Ray saw record CAP testing results. This past year, with 29 students scoring 4 or above on all tests, and 9 students scoring a perfect score of 5 on all tests.
On the 13th, the day after the CAP Scholar Breakfast, we have the high school bowl at Valley Regional High School from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Hale-Ray won a class competition, beating Westbrook High, and the next competition is at Valley Regional obviously, this Thursday.
Also on this Thursday, Sam Lemire is Hale-Ray's one-person gymnast team, and she will be competing in Old Sabre this coming Wednesday. 12. Sam is the defending Class S champion the past 3 years, and also competes as the returning #1 gymnast in all of Connecticut in the open division. Her state championship is March 1st, and the open division is March 8th.
Sophomore Ever Peacock qualified for the state championships in the 1600 meter and the 3200 meter events. They placed 17th and 13th respectively, but beat all Shoreline Conference runners in a very good effort for a sophomore student. And that's pretty cool. And Senior is also a senior. So, and Hale-Ray Open Mic freshman class is sponsoring an open mic night on this coming Friday, not this Friday, but the week after this, and the 21st. And it's all proceeds are going to the freshman class fundraiser, and we're called $33 door, and anyone that wants to come and sing karaoke or play band, because we have all kinds of bands signed up. So that's what's going on there.
On the 24th, the boys basketball senior night will be versus North Branford, and the girls basketball senior night was last night. And then in March, on the 7th, the Hale-Ray Association benefit basketball games will take place, and the Hale-Ray Alumni Association, sorry, I can't speak today. The Hale-Ray Alumni Association benefit basketball games will generate funds which will be applied to the scholarship fund.
On the 12th of March, the Illinois Athletic Booster Club will sponsor the Winter Athletics Award Banquet at the high school. There was dinner and award ceremonies for both the girls and boys basketball.
Finally, on March 29th only, the band and choirs
bands and choirs will take a trip to New York City, have a workshop with a Broadway director, one for each group respectively, and then they will attend a production of the Phantom of the Opera on Broadway.
That's top takeaways.
Questions, comments for Hale Ray reps? Thank you both very much. Good to see you. First Selectman, Mr. Walker.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I just got a status from CLP, from our emergency preparedness group. Just be aware there is a large storm coming. You've all heard about it. CLP anticipates this starting early Thursday, tapering off by Friday morning, forecasting 5 inches of heavy wet snow. They're predicting sustained winds of 20 to 25 miles an hour, gusts to 40. And CLP promises me they have extra crews ready, and they'll do their best. Hopefully that's what will happen. On the snow removal front too, I know there's always a lot of misunderstanding of, I know with school scheduling, our superintendent works with our Public Works office and Craig Mansfield, facilities, trying to predict and guess what's going to happen. One thing that we've come to realize, and we're going to start making a few changes, we don't subcontract the schools. Our own Public Works Department does your schools once the roads are cleared. So that's sometimes why other towns might be up and running sooner with their school systems, because they pay extra contractors to come in and just do schools. Of course, that would increase the budget. That would be a town decision. Roads are first, then schools, then municipal lots like libraries, town office, everywhere else. One thing we've uncovered is that even though the schools might be closed, there's still personnel that need to get into schools. So we're going to work with Public Works to make sure at least we open up the school roadway and some of the parking so the janitors and possibly some administration can actually get to the school. So I promise you that'll be in the works for this one. I also spent the morning, I'm on the board of directors of our lobbying group for towns and cities called CCM. We're monitoring now the governor's budget, what he's proposing. The session has started for our legislators. I'm working with Melissa Gebron, our state rep, and Art Lenartz, our state senator. And we're gearing up for what might happen, trying to continue to remind the legislation to make decisions that help not just the big cities, but the small towns. The one-size-fits-all never goes over well, usually for the smaller towns. And some of the highlights you might be interested in concerning the Board of Ed, the governor's proposed universal access to preschool for low-income families, increase the amount of state money to municipalities to cover education by $41 million, a 2% jump, and a $10 million for schools to enhance security systems. Some of that we've already qualified, and we're in the works on spending that latest grant. The budget also tries to invest millions in buildings at the state's largest public colleges and universities. You're going to be hearing a lot about the growth of UConn. So that's in the works. The UConn program is very successful, and they are planning another extensive expansion of the UConn system. And that's enough. We got a long budget. We'll go into any more details. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to always just contact me directly at the office. Thank you.
Questions, comments for Mr. Walton? Thank you very much. At this time, we have our first audience of citizens. I would ask that anyone who would like to speak tonight, since we now have 2 audience of citizen portions, speak once and limit your comments or questions to 3 minutes. Please speak briefly and express your thoughts, concerns, questions to the board in a respectful manner. Who would like to speak at this point? Okay, let's move on. I'm moving on to action on minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of January 14, 2014? Second? Discussion. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Second motion, to approve the minutes of the special meeting of January 27, 2014. Second? Second. Discussion. All those in favor? Thank you very much. This is when our superintendent starts her report with celebrations, and the Board of Ed has its own celebration this evening. I was informed that our own board member, Michael Werner, has been appointed as an assistant clerk to the Committee on Children by the Office of Legislative Management at the Connecticut General Assembly. Michael will be serving at the Capitol, side by side with House and Senate leaders on the committee, which deals with all the matters relating to children. Included in his duties, Michael will be reporting to our state senator and Children's Committee ranking member, Art Linares. Mike, it's quite an honor, and we're very, very lucky to have you on the board of Ed as well, so congratulations. Dr. Yacobelli.
At this time, we have a couple high school teachers to present on field trips. I believe Paula Stevens is here and is going to speak to the senior class.
No, it's
I could
get how you doing? Good. Let's hear what you've got in mind.
Okay, so here tonight, I'm just going to be passing around a itinerary of what we're proposing to you tonight. But our senior class trip, we have decided on a 2-day Boston experience. The first day, we are going to the Victoria Quincy Market. And then the next day, we're spending the whole day at Six Flags, so it's kind of more historic and education the first day, and then more fun the next day. I'll have Selena talk more into detail about the itinerary.
We plan to leave the high school around 9 o'clock a.m. and arrive in Boston around noon. So that has some free time in the market. And after a few hours there, we will attend our next presentation at the museum area. After a few hours there, in the presentation, we will attend a dinner dance cruise, have some fun, and then we'll return to our hotel for a good night's sleep and enjoy a day at Six Flags next day and depart early in the afternoon.
A quick little history that's going to be part of the strip. Quincy Market, established 1826, named after Mayor J. Quincy. It began as food stalls and just regular grocery, but has become one of the icons of Boston. The New England Aquarium has more than 8,000 aquatic creatures, and their giant tank they actually just finished is the 21st Century Transformation, which has 2,000 animals on view. And the IMAX movie scene has all kinds of information and demonstrations of animals that are too big, too rare, or too dangerous to be in these aquariums. And overall, the trip gives seniors a chance to live at Boston before they choose any colleges that might be in the area.
I'm Kiara. Good evening. After it's been a very heavy process of learning to become to go to Boston. In September, as seniors, officers went around to our senior project classes to discuss what the opportunity to take our senior trip and the benefits we have and all the other things, just as a night to say goodbye to all our friends for one last round. In September and October, we just threw out ideas and everything. At the end of October, we had formatted 3 choices. During November, we had Fast and Fast
with travel agents to see the best Iceland and the best places to be and all that kind of stuff. And at the end of December, before our hectic summer project expo day, we just had each student pick which place to go out of St. George, New York, Hershey Park, Pennsylvania, and Boston, Maryland. And Boston won. Not a good
So conclusively, we are hoping that you approve the proposal that we have submitted to you. We think that it'll be the pinnacle of a senior's experience throughout their full high school career. It's educational in many aspects, such as the historical Quincy market, but at the same time, it's kind of the last, as someone said before, the last hurrah for many of us seniors before we depart, whether it's college, joining courses, just joining the workforce. So it's a great time to bond before we are all set on our ways. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Sounds like a great trip.
Thank you.
It's on our consent agenda, so
Okay.
at the end of the meeting, you will have information. No question, that's a pretty good sign.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm really here to field any questions you have on the proposal. Hopefully you've had a chance to look it over. This is the third trip that we've taken in the last, it will be over 5 years. We're trying to do it biannually over April break. The proposal is a trip to Barcelona, just to Azura, which is the southern part of France, and also part of Italy, including possibly Florence and Rome. We're using a company that we have used in the past. We took them last April. We did a similar trip to Barcelona, Paris, and Rome. It was fantastic. It's had a great time. We had a total of 29 travelers. Last time we were looking for roughly the same number. This time it included both adults, staff, parents, and students. And it was well received. And the culture speaks for itself. I think a trip like that. And it's really so the proposed trip that I can do is either for a 9 or 10 day. It depends on the number of participants. Because if we have more participants, then it will be the cost increases as the number of participants increases. So if we have more participants, then the same cost, we can do a 10-day trip as opposed to a 9-day trip. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And then one, kind of jump ahead, one of the questions that's always asked is about insurance. The company always provides a basic insurance. The Board of Ed has always, in the last 2 trips, provided CERMA insurance, which is a CERMA acronym, but it basically is catastrophic injury, something major that happens on the trip. We have extra insurance. There's also trip insurance that we always recommend that people go in for trip purchase, which is a legal extra.
Comments, questions?
This is for 2015.
Thank you. It's also on our consent agenda. Thank you for coming.
At this time, we have our shared service report.
If I start coughing away, please give me that, and I can cough and save my life. So, just some updates on what's going on around town from the facilities and emergency management point of view. Again, the rainfall is an ongoing process. We're working on that. If you drive by it, it looks much different today than it did a month talked about the community ag project where we'll definitely have a school tie-in. We actually hired an architect for that project. George Founder's group was hired to actually design the site and the building for us. So that's underway, which I think is very exciting for the town. It's going to be a great project, good economic development project. We're working with the Simmons and land use, and we're looking for more funding from the state to help continue it. So there's some great opportunities there to do something that nobody else is doing. We updated the 10-year capital plan, working with the Long Range Planning Commission on the Board of Ed, and we're now working on doing the same thing on the town side. We are looking at every building within the town, how we get that same plan done. We've had the company come out and do all the routes for every town building we have, including the school, tell us where they stand. We are now looking at boilers, we're looking at all of those things that are kind of forgotten over time until they break, and then we say, why didn't we fix that a year ago? So if we can create a plan where things are scattered out or spread out a little bit, that's our goal, and make sure that we're funding them correctly. Attached to your packet is a write-up that was posted on the Department of Emergency Management website, who's overseeing the grants for the state of Connecticut. It's kind of an overview of the school safety and security standard plan, so when you have a chance to read through it, probably one of the most notable things that has come out of this, which will be a little bit of a, I'll call it a burden on the schools, quite honestly, is that every teacher is going to be required to take online NIMS training. So it's a 2 or 3 hour time frame. You'll have to commit to taking that class, but the goal of it is to bring the schools up to a NIMS standard. NIMS is National Incident Management System, so everybody works on that same standard. So the schools start on an incident, and then when the emergency responders come in, that incident is already set up and based. So the responders just fit into the roles that the schools have already created. So for a teacher point, there's one level, or from a teacher, there's one level that they will have to take, and then for the administrators, there's additional classes, and from the superintendent and the people that will serve on the committees, there are additional classes they'll have to take. Working with the middle school to create their updated safety and security template, or plan as a template, then we can work with the high school and the elementary school to get their plans updated and together. I had, at the beginning of the month, last week, we had an emergency management meeting, so I brought all the chiefs of services up to speed on the process and the plans and what their roles are going to be, because the state clearly requires that the chiefs of the ambulance, the fire, the police, resident trooper for us be involved in this process and overseeing and approving the plans. They actually have to be signed off by all of those, including the fire marshal, first selectman, emergency management director, the superintendents. There are a lot of people in this process that the state has required to be part of it. And the last thing on the top part is we're working to combine up the town and the school's workplace safety committees. Right now the town has a committee, the school has been part of that town committee for the past several months. The goal is to get some more involvement from the school side, from the teacher, administrators, so that committee, and this is a recommendation of Kerma, our insurance company, and it also meets some OSHA requirements that the town has. So we, or recommendations from OSHA that to keep those safety committees up. We have some areas that are our largest loss leaders from accidents, so we can address those as a whole across the town. And then just before I turn it over to Cindy, I'll drop down to the bottom. From an informational point of view, we have about 2 months before the Route 82 bridge gets shut down at Ray Hill Road. Informational for the town, folks in the audience too. Route 82 will be, the bridges at Ray Hill Road will be getting shut down from April 15th to November 1st is the goal at this point. They promise us by November 1st at the latest they will be reopened. The state will have a detour process that's in place. The state has to detour on state roads, which will take people up into the center of Budas. The town is working on a local traffic plan right now. That was part of our emergency management meeting last week, and we'll also be presenting that to the Board of Selectmen for approval. We've addressed the bus issues. There's actually only one bus route that's directly affected by this, which is good. So there's minimal around that, but it will give us the ability to, once we address the town plan, it allows us to keep some of the traffic, the trucks out of the neighborhood. We're looking at areas that are concerns around safety, blind spots, to address those so we don't have accidents from the additional traffic. And the last thing that's not on this, but Mark talked about CLMP and the status reports that they give us as storms come out. I'm sure people have seen, and this will have a direct improvement for the schools. There are a ton of CLMP trucks in town currently. CLMP was given $15 million that they had set aside into a budget to do infrastructure improvements. East Haddam, prior to Irene, the largest circuit that East Haddam has, which covers about 80% of our town, and which includes all 3 schools, that circuit was the worst circuit in the state of Connecticut infrastructure-wise prior to Irene. There was so much damage to it during Irene that we actually, with the improvements and all the fixes they did, they took it from the worst to the 15th worst. That's how much damage there was and how much was done. With that said, even with it being the 15th worst, we are still, as a town, getting $1.7 million out of that $15 million for infrastructure repairs, and which includes poles. They're resetting about 140 poles, new wire, some T-bars across the top of cross arms are being strengthened. So the goal is, from a hardening point of view, that when the storms do hit, the poles will have a lot more resiliency to support the trees hitting them, which should in turn hopefully help us greatly with the power. So.
Want to stop for a moment? Any questions or comments on for Craig? I just have one question. Did you contact Mrs. Keating?
I did.
And? What's her?
We talked about it at the long range planning, so I think Sean was going to do an update on it. The district as a whole had mixed feelings when they initially rolled out Raptor, but over time everybody's gotten used to it. Part of the long range planning, we met tonight and talked about it. The recommendation at this point is to move forward with Raptor. We compared up iVisitor and Raptor. For the things that are negative, or that Raptor doesn't do that iVisitor does, there are things that Raptor does that iVisitor doesn't do. So from a pricing point of view, Raptor really maintains a much steadier price structure for us and a little bit cheaper than iVisitor, which we can then make up on the, by changing some procedures on the card access side, that'll cover that. So we talked in long range, Sean and the group kind of has made the direction to the city to see how we can reallocate some money or move some stuff around to get it rolling now. It's about $4,800 to roll it out in all 3 schools to start right now. So we'll work on that. It shouldn't take long once we get the process in place. So Sean, I didn't even take it.
Yeah, no. Greg gave us a pretty nice side-by-side comparison of the two.
And when you hear of something like that in a small little town that everybody's talking about, and then I had an administrator who visited there and was so surprised at what they were able to do. I mean, why not jump on the bandwagon and get something? And I'm sure initially part of it was that people didn't like the fact. I mean, it's just like anything else. It's when we used to, anything you implement that might be an inconvenience for people, or I left my wallet in the car and now I have to go back out. All those things contribute to people feeling negative initially, but when they realize in the long run how much safer the schools can be, I'm delighted to hear that, because I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Yeah. There are a lot of visitor management programs out there. They all do their thing. Raptor has really taken an inch around Cape as well.
Good.
So, it'll definitely work for us, and we'll make it fit into the overall program.
Great.
Finance. As you all know, it's budget season. The Finance Subcommittee will hopefully be meeting Thursday night for the permitting. And the town budgets are in, we're beginning to, Mark and I are beginning to compile them and review them. The first Board of Selectmen budget workshop, we're gonna do one on Saturday, two on Saturday if we need to. The next item is a really good news item. Back in the fall, we reported that the audit for the fourth grade middle school, the state wanted to disallow certain items. We came away after a meeting with Rep. Chevron, Selectman Walter, and myself, with the Department of Ed, and they pretty much agreed with most of our findings. So we will not be in the hole on the project. We'll be able to pay off the remaining debt that we owe on it, and we'll be about $60,000 to the good. So that's excellent, excellent news. They increased the reimbursement to the town by $215,000. So we were delighted, needless to say.
Thank you for your efforts. Yes. Had to go through mountains of people
I
to
bet.
figure all this out.
I bet.
We worked out great. We actually found an extra $100,000 by the time. So
Excellent.
worked out to the town's really huge benefit.
Thanks for your efforts. Yes.
It was nice to get a good letter from the state.
Yeah.
With regard to the project. Units you keep hearing about had a great meeting today with our Blue Shapiro representative and Tyler Tech, those units, and started designing the chart of accounts for the town and the Board of Ed. And the process is moving forward, and we are on schedule for the town portion to go to the new chart of accounts in May, which will cause some agita. The Board of Ed will go live with new chart of accounts October 1st. We will go live with payroll January 1st for both the town and the Board of Ed, and we will go live with the automated human resources and self-serve component with July 1 of 2015. So that's our target dates. The calendar is very ambitious, but I think in the end it's going to serve the town well and provide us with a lot more tools for purchasing. Craig and I have already talked about ways that we will be able to really take a top-down approach and maybe do bulk buying and purchasing and bidding for the town and the schools to get the best bang for our buck. So we're very excited about that. USDA, another thing y'all keep hearing about. Craig and I had a conference call today with our representative. Craig, Mark, and I are meeting with him tomorrow. We're waiting to hear whether we're eligible for USDA grant for the old middle school and a loan for proposed renovations to the elementary school. Now that we're working with the feds, they still don't know, the regional office, what their appropriation is going to be. They're now targeting March 1st. That's an 11,000-page bill that they're all going through to see who gets what money. So we continue to be in contact with them and understand there's red tape, but the benefits to the town, should this work out, are worth the red tape. And lastly, when we switched our healthcare provider to Connecticut, part of the focus of the committee was wellness for our employees. And we are going to start a wellness committee, and it's going to be comprised of a representative of each of the schools, the payroll benefits coordinator for the town and the Board of Ed, the Park and Recreation Director, and myself. And the committee will be charged with looking at incentives in which to encourage wellness and promote wellness in the district. And through our contract with Connecticut, they actually established a budget of $15,000 for us to look for incentives. In some districts and towns, they had the biometric opportunity, and people who participate get a gift card somewhere. In some communities, they've given discounts to the employees for the health insurance. First and foremost, anything that happens, we don't know about. Connecticut is all confidentially administered. But we're very excited about promoting wellness through our employees and their families and looking ways ultimately to have healthier employees and save on our insurance premiums. So
Then we have to consider a wellness fair.
That is part of what the committee will be discussing. It will be the committee's job to set the tone of what our goal is for all of our employees and how we want to use those incentive dollars, whether it's biometrics, a wellness fair, a multi-tiered approach. But yes, those are all things that we discussed about with them. In Connecticut, it has been very, very helpful in giving greater instructional tools, and we'll be rolling out other items to employees as time goes on. But they'll be given much great access to their information and tips for wellness and well-being. So we're very excited about that. That was a critical component when we were interviewing the firms that could really be our healthcare provider.
There seems to be some apprehension around the middle school being completed and all the funding and grants that went along with that. And the discussion of the fourth grade, and although, again, no decisions have been made, it's still coming up, that if we were to move the fourth grade back to the elementary school, there would be a possible penalty that the town would have to repay. And I've heard people talk about a 5-year look back. Could you maybe go into that?
Yes. When we were audited, they look at your highest number of enrollment in a time frame from when you projected. We haven't, based on what I told you, Mary Beth has accepted the audit findings. We will get the final letter from the State Board of Ed, but at this point, you can consider the project 99.9% closed. We're just waiting for that final document. There will be no penalties, no matter what the board decides. The project's audited and the project's closed, and we've accepted it.
Anyone else? Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Last board meeting, they scattered presented the data around CMT and CAP results and the performance indices, and math was a notable area of concern. And this evening, we have middle school and high school teams that are going to speak to the board about what is going on in those schools to address that deficit area. So at this time,
part of the high school,
Be able to see it done school home, I believe, pretty soon for the children.
What I'm going to get up to now, give you a little bit of an overview of what the SBI means, if you don't know. I'll talk a little bit about that. We'll run through a little bit of CAP information, what our action plan is moving forward, and sort of where we stand. So. Okay. Sorry, you guys don't get to see this. All right, so on page 1, the student performance index, SBI. Sorry for the crude representation of this. I did a print screen and put this on. This is the only way I could get it. This is a PDF. There are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different levels that the state will put schools into, selling, progressing, transition. Underneath those shows you the number of schools that fall within those categories. I'm not exactly adept at how the formula is compiled and how they weight everything, but our overall status is in the progressing stage, which is one below excelling, and we're along with 51 schools. So, certainly area of improvement, but not unbelievably poor. Our current SBI number for the math department is 73.7. Our initial target is 77.1. Again, I don't know the formula, and even if I did, maybe it would be a little bit tough to describe the weighting and everything that's on it. But anyway, we have an overall target within the years to come of an 88, and that's statewide. So based on what the state proposes, our progression will be to increase within about a 1.119 points per year, about 1.2 points per year. Below that, you have your CAP data. I only gave you 4 years. I mean, this is something that we deal with every single year. It's not like we don't look at CAP scores and we don't try to compare our kids to CAP. We do indeed do that. I went back actually 10 years, and quite frankly, it's what you would expect. We go up some years at advanced above goal, we go down some years. It is somewhat of a roller coaster. I would say, in general, it's flat. The strands I gave you on the second page, what each of those strands mean. Geometry and measurement is the strand that we show our weakness in. And not only is it us, I was in a Shoreline conference meeting the other day with the other heads of the math departments, and that is a weakness across the state. And the issue with these types of problems that you should know about is that they are multi-concept, multi-task problems that deal with not only multi-steps, but dimensional analysis, proportional reasoning, all compiled into one application. And there could be multiple questions per. So it is actually the highest of level of math that you probably can compile into one answer. You have to be able to justify and verify your answers, and quite frankly, the language of mathematics is a weakness not only amongst our students, but across the nation. So that needs to be an improvement for sure. Notes that what should be noted here is that, being that we are a small district, we have 100 students on average per class, so each student is a 1%. So when you're looking at cap data, you have one person changes things 1%. Whereas if you look at a bigger district, it could take 20 people to make a 1%, depending on how big their class sizes are. Maybe not 20, that might be a little exaggerated, but I think you get it if you know anything about math. We are ranging between 10 and 15 students, basic and below basic, which would be probably obviously to predict per class. What is the percentage of students that are at the lowest levels in our classes? My guess is, not my guess, I know it's about 10%. We can just look at our special ed population, and that's no disrespect to anybody, that's just real. Our students at or above goal are about 50, so it's about half the class. The data is relatively normally distributed, where we do have a lot. We also have between 41 and 59 students that are falling within the proficient range. I believe that's what it is. No, check that. That was called advanced. Check that. Between 30 and 42 students on average fall in proficient range. Well, that's really not great. We'd like to see those proficient people move towards at or above goal, and that is always our goal. But it is normally distributed. If it was right skewed, I'd have a problem with that, which would mean that most of we only have a couple of students at advanced or above goal, which is not really the case. I gave you a couple of other numbers there. In 7 years, we've had 3 losses and we've had 3 gains. 29.8 on the loss, 27.7 on the gains, with a difference of 2.1. It's up and down depending on the cohort. We really can predict with some proficiency, how those things are going to pan out, quite frankly. And the 10-year review shows similar results. Now we've done things. We've taken CAP tests and we've focused on CAP tests, and we've infiltrated them and embedded them into our practices and so forth. We embedded them into our curriculum. And, it works, it doesn't work. I don't have the direct answer. I know that the Common Core, now that is here to stay, is something different. What the Common Core does, that should be noted, is that it does attack performance tasks and applications. Our weakness. They're able to apply multiple concepts and multiple tasks to certain situations and problems to generate answers. And so that movement, to me, is positive. And that's where we need to head. The other thing is, it also addresses succinctly the language of mathematics. And that always is a key thing, is to understand the given information, understand where you are, and understand where you need to go. And so we need to do a better job working on our instructional practices in order for them to be able to understand the reading and the mathematics and be able to apply those terms and theorems and postulates and everything else that goes with it. But they also need to attend to their position to do the same thing. So it's a two-way street. You see our SAT scores last year, 72 participants, where our mean average was 531. We are ranging above the state average, and the national average has been about 514, but quite frankly, we're right in the 50th percentile. The goal would be to be higher than that. That's where we stand right now. There has been questions about AP and how that all pans out, and that's not on this list either. The advanced placement and college board helped to come up with the Common Core. They were part of the executive committee so they are in lockstep with the Common Core. And if you want to go ahead and read it, the name of the publication that AP puts out, Common Core Standards Alignment, called Connection. You can go ahead and Google that and read that whole thing. And it's going to tell you exactly what AP's, the College Board's role in that was, and that is where our advanced placement is. And I just quote real quickly, the Common Core, this is from that publication, the College Board has been a strong advocate for and played an active role in the development of CCSS. It helps to draft it and to provide executive assistance. So, the question then is, how does it all pan out in the end? Well, the idea is they looked at it from 6th grade on when they generated the Common Core and aligning it with the AP. There are upper level standards. If you read the standards or looked at them, you would see that those upper level standards have to be addressed in pre-calculus in order for kids to meet their needs in AP calculus. They have to be addressed. So as instructors, we have to make sure that we do that. And if we don't do that, then we're not going to prepare them as well as they could be. So that is definitely out there to address. But we are all clear on where we need to go and where we are. The areas of challenge I put down there, number one I mentioned already. Number two, a deep understanding of numbers and math facts and students' reliance on calculators. Quite frankly, I don't think they should have calculators until high school or at least into Algebra 1. But there is a shift in instruction, and I can safely say that from the 4th grade level on how we're learning how to multiply and how to divide and actually understanding what the numbers mean rather than just performing an algorithm to get the answer. And that's the instructional practices that are current right now, and that's the movement forward. So in hopes, these 4th graders who come down the line and get to us at high school, they'll have a better understanding of numbers rather than perform, procedure, get answer, and move on. Okay, yeah, the kids want to do that. Well, if we perform the procedure, move on and understand what we did, and be able to interpret that with the language of mathematics, now we've done something. And of course, we have to be accountable as instructors to make sure that they do that. And it's not as if we don't know. We do know that is an issue. The language of mathematics I put on there. Cohort groups, there's not a lot more that you can say in small schools. You guys are all intelligent people. You know how that works. The smaller the class, we're going to get smaller and smaller, which is going to mean each kid is going to be worth more and more to our numbers. Okay, that's all. When we have a class of 70 coming up, that one kid's going to be worth 1.25%. Okay, and so then that'll just grow the lower the amount of kids that we have. That's just real. And then I also have mentioned another area of challenge is keeping students in our school system. I'd like to see us have some sort of progress into keeping more kids here and not losing as many. And the last area of challenge I put down, which you don't have on your list, is the plus standards in mathematics we need to get to and we need to address for AP. I gave you an action plan. The action plan 1 and 2 is what we are currently engaged in. It's part of our school improvement plan. You know, we've created curriculum maps. We are now developing units of study. The state has provided us an Algebra 1 pilot or model program, which quite frankly is fantastic. They have all kinds of ideas, formative assessments, summative assessments, application problems set for us. So hopefully as we move forward, that we'll reap the benefits of that at the higher levels of mathematics. We've talked on number 2, I have track, evaluate, measurable indicators of student achievement. We are working on common performance assessments. We have them in Algebra 2, and we're working on the other classes. We can't turn over overnight, okay? I put down NWEA. For those of you who don't know, we are in contact with and have had some professional development with NWEA, and I think Stacy, you were at that, so maybe you can address that a little bit more. We are not part of it right now. We haven't subscribed to it. It is an assessment program that kids can take, benchmark assessments, and then they'll be able to generate that data for us, so we can find areas of weakness and gaps and strengths for that matter. Number 3, as part of our action plan, I mean, we have to certainly sit and collaborate, which we have increased our collaboration vertically and within our own content area. Is it where it needs to be? No, but hopefully it will be getting there. Avenues have been opened up for us to improve with that, but clearly we have to be accountable as well. Right now we have Freshman Learning Lab, where optional math interventions are occurring. It's optional right now. Hopefully when an SRBI process is really up and running the right way, that could be maybe a mandated thing. In the future, number 5 is a future thought. You know, having a math interventionist at the high school or a consultant or somebody that can work both ways. You know, everybody says intervention's got to be on the lower level kid, but it doesn't have to be on the lower level kid. It can be on the higher level kid. If we want kids to meet that AP and get to that point, then we also have to be able to not only differentiate in the classroom, but if we had somebody outside the classroom to help get that spot, that would be good as well. Last piece is our resources, where I think we clearly, you read through the textbooks, we need resource. Now, we've been on we put in for textbooks, you know, a couple of years ago. I get it, why we're on the hook for it. First of all, they're expensive, number 1. But number 2 is where do we stand? Where do the publishers really stand with the Common Core and how the movement is mathematically? They're still improving and getting better at what they do. Are we going to move to technology instead of textbooks? You know, that's maybe up for your discussion. You know, I don't know. But if you look at our textbooks are, you know, 2002 Algebra 1, Geometry 1992, Algebra 2 is 17 years old, and so forth. And then and AP Statistics, we don't have any books. So that is a quick little overview where we stand, what things mean, and where we're hoping to head. Any questions?
Mr. Rich?
So what are we using for Algebra 1, Algebra 2 again?
Well, right now, as I mentioned earlier, we are using primarily what the state has generated and come up with their model curriculum, plus our own performance assessments that we've generated. And don't let that you know, bring it down in Algebra 1, because they have great resources. They got enough there for us to get by with. We are working on using the Holt online resources as well to supplement it. We're not really, at the high school, we really haven't given out textbooks for kids. We are using things generated from teacher and or state generated things. geometry, I used a geometry book that was in 1992. Hey, listen, the other thing is this, is, the Pythagorean theorem has been the Pythagorean theorem for 4,000 years. Okay, so, whether it's in the 1992 book or in the 2002 book or the 2022 book, it's still the same thing. Whether, there are different avenues to use it, and we could be more current in its usage, but it's still the same thing. The other thing is like, our books, when you look in a book and you read, hey, the price of gas is 89 cents, it's not 89 cents. So we need to get up to $3.62, So those are things that, that certainly come to life.
Anyone else? I have a couple of comments. Firstly, this board never previewed textbooks 2 years ago, so these cuts must have been made before it came to the board. We have never seen a textbook since I've been on the board, which is 5 years.
Yeah, what we did 2 years ago was we proposed it, and actually we looked at it prior to that, and we proposed it, but we didn't go the next step because if it wasn't going to get through the budgetary system, then...
Who said it wasn't going to get through? We don't know.
We don't.
Anyway, the other thing is districts all over the state, and I know Mary Beth can speak to this as well. Districts all over are waiting for these publishers to come out with new textbooks in math that are aligned to this Common Core. And everybody's scrambling to be the first one to be out there, whether it's Addison Wesley or Holt Run, it doesn't matter. So they're all waiting. Everybody's kind of in a holding pattern. The last thing I'd say is NWDA. Stacy, I don't know how expensive it is, but it's receiving very high marks all over the state. It's the benchmark assessments, and educators are finding that it's very well worth the money, but I don't know how expensive it is. I mean, we're just starting the budget process, so I'd like to know what that would cost us. And the other thing I'd say is as soon as we could put some placeholders in the budget for math textbooks. This board talked about math interventionists at one time, but that was never realized. But I've got to say, Amina 531 is not too shabby. So, good work. And thank you for what you do. And like I said, hopefully things will get better, but everybody is in the same crunch, Rich. All districts are losing kids. It's a sign of the times. People are moving out of Connecticut. People are having fewer kids. So you talk to anybody in any district, and their population, their enrollments are going down. So we'll all see a difference in our schools based on that. Anything further? We appreciate your time, and this was very well done. Thank you, Rick.
So in just a moment, we're going to be joined by Stacy Britner. Stacy's our math consultant slash math coach / interventionist enrichment. She wears a lot of hats this year. I'd like to start out just going back to the cool schools moment. Steve Purnell, our PE teacher, health teacher, was one who organized that. So if you ever wanted to see, thank you for really taking the lead on that and made all the contacts, set it up, and it was a lot of fun to do that. So in terms of middle school scores, I'm just going to address the scores that we discussed last week, and I'm going to ask Stacy to come up and talk about what we're doing about it. First of all, our scores are okay. They're not great, and they should be great. I think we have an opportunity with the implementation of Common Core, the addition of Stacy, to become great. If you go to page 2 of the packet, which I distributed earlier, this. This is a year-by-year look. It's 5 years of 4th grade and 6 years of all the other grades. If you read across the top, there are columns that say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the bands. 1 is the lowest band, and 5 is the highest band. For the federal level, like the No Child Left Behind, we want to see kids 3, 4, or 5. For the state goal, we want to see kids in a 4 and 5 band. One thing we do is we routinely stay well above the state average. We remain approximately 10% above the state average in both proficient and in goal. One thing we do particularly well is remediate the low kids. If you look at the column 1, all the way down to the 8th grade, you see those numbers go very, very low. And so, as Rich said, it's about a child per percentage point. And so over the last 5 years, we've only had 3 children that are in that below basic band. So we do a very good job of taking kids and teaching them basic math. And this includes all the children, especially kids and all. One thing that I don't think that we're doing great with is taking those kids in bands 3 and 4 and getting them to 5, which is where we need to be. We're going to be a high-quality feeder program to the high school to improve our SAT scores, to improve our AP scores. We need to take some of those kids and move them up to the highest band. One thing I'd like to talk about last year is the scores went down approximately 2% in proficient and in goal. That was completely predicted, and I think we even talked about this at the board last year. The reason is because the test that they took was the CMT, which is based upon the Connecticut framework. And for some of the grades, that's up to 25 discrete strands that they have to do. What we did is we did a complete Common Core curriculum. This is a district-wide decision, which I support 100%, that we taught Common Core, but we assessed on the Connecticut framework. And if you look at some grades, such as in 5th grade, out of the 25 strands that 5th grade is responsible for, the Common Core really only hits 16 of them, which means that 9 of the strands that the children tested on were not taught in 5th grade. And I'm actually happy that our scores only went down by 2%. Now, and they're still in solid shape, but that's why there's a small correction last year. It'd be like teaching kids geometry, giving them a trigonometry test. It's a little bit different. Good overlap, a lot of parallel, but definitely has differences. Okay, so one of the, like I said, our scores are okay, but there's other indicators that make me think that we're not where we need to be, and I think we have an opportunity for systemic improvement. Indicators such as like our AP scores and our SAT scores aren't as high as I'd like to see them. And I think that starts at elementary school, definitely picks up in middle school. We need to become a better feeder program for the high school. And then and recently our math team went and competed at the Shoreline, some of our 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and we did okay, but we didn't do that well. And that was eye-opening to me, and a lot of that comes down to, as Rich talked about, the math application piece, the more complicated math. And that's an area that really has me concerned, that we did okay, and I think Stacey Britton will speak about that just a little bit. Then the other one is gotten back to me that some of our students that chose not to go to Hillray to other schools didn't do so well in the placement test, and that troubles me, because I want our children to be prepared for no matter where they go. I obviously prefer to go to Hillray, but they don't want them to be prepared for anything. So I'd like to introduce Steve Brittner, and Stacey will take you through this and talk about some of the systemic improvements that we're doing at the middle school.
Hi, I'm Stacey Brittner. I'm the math consultant at the middle school. Hello. I work with grades 4 through 8. Excuse me. Just a little bit about what I do. I work with enrichment students, intervention. I work with all the teachers who work on curriculum writing with adopting the new Common Core standards to make sure we're in line. I coach the math team and I organize the benchmark data. So we have fall, winter, and spring data. We use AMSWEP and we use Scholastic. So Scholastic is a new addition this year. We're testing it out, seeing if we want to purchase it again next year. But I know we mentioned NWEA as well. Mary Beth and I were there listening to the sales pitch for it, and personally it sounded great. It was what I looked for, and it really will help teachers differentiate in their classrooms. It literally shows the bands of like green, yellow, and red, and then who we should focus on, and what groups, and what topics you should be working on. So it's a really nice way to get all the information. I've heard that it shares a lot of data, and it can be a little overwhelming. So they also provide professional development, which drives the cost up of having it, but it's definitely useful so you know what you're working with. You can actually make it useful in the classroom, not just on a piece of paper that you send in. I'm just going to go through the first sheet that you guys have in your packet, just to explain what's in there. So I mentioned Scholastic, that's aligned to the Common Core standards. and it gives a performance level for each grade level and recommendations of lessons to assist students in learning and show growth. So if you look at page 3, I gave you a sample of our 4th grade data, and it shows that from the fall, which is the one that's a little lighter grade on the left, to the darker on the right, it shows that the 2 lower levels below basic and basic went down from fall to winter, which is what we want, and then proficient to advanced went up. So that's, what we can see using this program, where our kids are, just like we can see from the CMT results. Moby Max is a program we're also piloting this year. It's an online resource, and we actually got a school license for, I believe it was around $400. So it's nice where all teachers can use that. There's a placement test, and it puts the kids in what grade level they are, and it shows you where their gaps are. So it's really informational, and you can also do it by class as well within the grade. So you can see in certain classes that you have where the gaps are, because in some classes it's different than others, depending on the population that's in there. Ames Web is something we've used for a few years. It's computation and application of knowledge in math, so it gives a national percentile. So if we're at less than 10%, 10%, 25%, we want the kids at 50% and above, hopefully. But we're working with the kids at a lower level as well. Big Brains is for mass attack. I'm using that in my intervention classes this year. And I've been using it for multiplication and division facts 1 through 12 because that is the tough thing for the kids to, grasp by the end of 4th grade, and that's where our expectation is. So, and it's just like a video game. It's really nice where the kids can kind of have that link to it. And I've had little 4th graders, they don't really sit in the seat, so they stand up and they're playing the game. And it's so cute to watch them actually play the game and like, oh, I know that fact, and they'll just get really excited they got it right. And this big ogre comes out, and if you get it wrong, he hits you over the head with a club, and then if you get it right, he shrinks, and then he dies. And it's a video game, so it's fun for the kids too, and it's free. So that's really nice. But if you want to upgrade, you can go to different levels, but that costs money. So I just tell them, just hit the bottom one. It's really affordable. So the kids do like that, and I've had quite a few students test out with the multiplication and start with division, and then it gets a little more challenging for them because it's just a different way of thinking about it, and they're used to just doing a multiplication table, and they get a little certificate at the end that they passed it. So it's nice too to have them, show their parents something that they did at school. So the recent improvements we've done, the position I'm in, the math consultant, was added, and personally, I've been in the district a few years with when it kind of comes and goes and you don't have a consultant. It's really nice to have someone gather everyone together and have all the information in one place and just have those weekly meetings where you talk about things going on. And I think Rich, you mentioned that as well in high school. It'd be nice to have that. So I definitely see the value in it because I wish I had it a couple years when we didn't have it as a teacher in the system. I do provide enrichment for our top students in each grade, and based on our fall to winter data, I'm going to be expanding that number. So hopefully work with more kids more often. Our 4th and 5th grade, I have about 25 right now that I work with once a week, so I'm hoping to increase that to maybe 35, 40, and work a couple times a week. So they're really wanting to learn, and I personally feel like if we don't help them enrich themselves, then they will lose skills and they will miss out on an opportunity to just be better mathematicians down the road. So I think it's really important that we have that enrichment piece as well as the intervention piece. Our algebra upgrades, we have the Common Core curriculum and assessments for the high school, so we no longer need to teach the 25 CMT strands in addition to the algebra curriculum. So that's a weight lifted off of us at the middle school as well, where we can just focus on having a managed algebra 1 class in 8th grade that is the same benchmarks and PAs, performance assessments, as the high school. So they're getting the same experience, just a different teacher like they would in high school anyways. Then we have our math team competition. This is my first year doing it. Tina Bernard did it before, and so she gave me some tips and tricks and all that kind of good stuff before I went, but it was definitely eye-opening. Some of the schools did really well in the team competition and then in the individual competition. So my goal is to contact them in the next couple weeks and see if we can talk on how they approach the math team competition, how they enrich for kids, and if we can possibly do like a mock trial type of competition in the fall and before the competition starts again in February. Letters sent home to parents. I hear a lot that parents just don't know how to help their kids at home, so we're working on having just a basic format of what to send home, maybe with every unit, with every math team, so we'll have an answer for you, in the upcoming weeks on how we're going to handle that, so that it's a consistent basis from year to year for the parents, so they get a clear message from our department. We meet on a weekly basis. The grades 6 through 8 meet with me on Mondays, and 4 and 5, their time of day is different than ours, so they can't meet the 1:30 meeting, but we have a monthly meeting after school that they can meet. But it would really be beneficial to have us have a meeting time during the school day when we can just put stuff aside, talk about what's going on, where we can help each other, and writing the curriculum. So that would be really useful if we run the same schedule. I know it's really complicated with grades 4 through 8, but it would be nice. The next thing I have there is the algebra unit development at the Connecticut Department of Education. Melissa, Luke, and I attended that over the summer, and there's another one coming up for the second half of algebra 1 that I'll be attending. And, that was really useful information too, just to talk to other teachers from other schools and what they're doing, what challenges they're seeing, how they're overcoming them. So it was a really nice professional development to attend. The same thing with Track and Learn. They offer something once a month that we can go to. And I've been there for a few years, and it's really beneficial. Just same thing to hear what people are struggling with, how they're approaching it. Because if we don't have to recreate the wheel and someone's using something that's successful, why not try it? Why not use it and, be efficient with our time? And then our new curriculum templates, it's the last page in your packet there. It says, Nathan Howard Middle School Mathematics Student Plan. The math teachers and I wanted to include everything that was useful for us, so that this was something that, we could see from grade to grade, and we can see our essential questions, what we're actually looking for the students to understand the unit, and how it all comes about, the order of things, and what math practices we're focusing on for each standard to make sure we hit everything in every unit that we need to. And then the other thing I have there on the first page is textbooks. So our grades 6 through 8 in Algebra 1, we have an online textbook through Holt, and it's a really good resource. It's our first line of defense, so to speak. And they have videos, they have suggested assessments, but the textbook we find it doesn't link exactly to Common Core because it's Common Core so new in textbooks, like we said, publishers are trying to catch up and get out there first so they can, make the most profit. But we want to make sure that what we're using is useful, and so far we've seen it being really useful. Grades 4 and 5 do not have a textbook right now, so we're relying heavily on the state documents, which are great, but it would also be nice to have a textbook that, kids can look at online just like 6th or 8th graders can. So I'm looking at a few textbooks to get samples of so that the math department and I can look at and see what actually does align to the Common Core, and then propose a textbook to the superintendent. That's all.
Questions, comments for Stacy? Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you.
Very informative.
And another topic that has come up a few times in the last board meeting came up again in a letter from students relative to AP. I did send out some information to board members, but Eric is going to talk a little bit more comprehensively about the AP program at the high school and the curriculum we are implementing.
All right, so I just handed out a list of AP options at the high school. AP Art History, AP Biology, both of these classes run every year at this point. AP Calculus, AP Chem, which is new. We have a new science teacher who's AP Training, will be training again this coming summer. AP English Lit and AP English Language Comp. AP French, which will be new. We have a new French teacher who's also going to be training over the summer. AP Psychology, which is something that students have shown a lot of interest for. We have a teacher that has been teaching psychology through DHS as well as an elective course here and wants to train with AP Psych. AP Spanish. We've taught AP Spanish in the past, although the numbers were not there. Haven't been able the past couple of years to drive a course, to have that course actually follow through. AP Statistics.
Again, that's also new, that we thought that with some preliminary polling, the students would be interested in AP Stats as opposed to AP Calc. We'll have to let the numbers play out. AP US History, which has been a staple, and then we have a number of VHS AP options that students have taken advantage of over the years, whether it's AP Economics, AP Political Science, AP Environmental Science, etc. One of the things that Dr. Cavelli asked me to talk to you about is how the curriculum process works. So for these new AP classes, the College Board provides an outline for what the curriculum has to be. Teachers write the curriculum and have to submit it for approval to the College Board. And in light of that, we will also have that move through our curriculum process. We now have a curriculum committee which will see that curriculum as well. Any questions up to this point about AP operating?
How are the teachers trained, and if it's a new class, how do we deal with that?
The teachers are trained through College Board, and it's a rigorous program that a number of our teachers attend through. And it's a new class in what respects?
Well, does it cost, I'm guessing, to get the training and all that stuff?
Yeah, there's a cost to the district for the training, which takes place over the summer. Now, in the past, as I've said, we've run some classes every other year, but what we want to do this year is keep things a little open. We want the numbers to drive and dictate what classes are offered. So if we have 10, 12 students who want AP Statistics and 4 or 5 that want AP Calc, then we'll most likely go with AP Statistics. And then look at VHS as an alternative. It's going to be tough to justify running a class with 4 or 5 students in it.
Questions for Eric? Bill?
When you say they are AP training, College Board training, over the summer, how's that done?
How is it done? Okay, well, we pay for a course for them, and they end up taking this course over the summer and fulfill the requirements of the College Board training.
Where do they do? Eastern, they go to Taft, where do they do? Where do they go?
Well, I think there's a couple of different places they can go. I can get that information for you, where our last teacher's gone.
Just interested in knowing whether they go, for instance, I know Eastcon does it. I know Taft School does it. I just wonder where they're going, that's all. Question?
Anyone else? Thanks, sir. Thank you,
Very
Eric.
welcome.
We're going to move on to committee reports. Policy, Mr. Warner.
Policy was scheduled to meet, but we had a snow day, and then I was going to schedule for this Thursday, and I think we're going to get out. We will be reconvening soon.
Finance, Ms. Gianza.
Well, we all had our budget workshop, and Cindy's working on the questions that were presented. So the next budget workshop will be the 18th. Hopefully. The subcommittee was scheduled to meet on Thursday as well. Actually, we were scheduled to meet the last Monday, back in Monday. But now we rescheduled to Thursday. And I really want to get it together before the budget workshop. So we'll see what this weather thing is, and the subcommittee should get an email tomorrow to determine what we're going to do. If we can't meet on Thursday, we'll try and do a conference call. And Sarah will set that up. And we'll get the materials actually via email, and we'll take care of all that. So probably at the same time that we had it scheduled for. So just, give me the phone.
Yeah. I apologize. I have a quick motion. I have a conflict on the 18th. Is there a way we could push the start to 7:30? What do you think?
Supposed to be 7?
Yeah, it's supposed to be 7. Yeah.
I move that we push it to 7:30.
You don't need to move. We don't need a motion. You can just change it.
Would that be all right?
Yeah, fine with me.
Yeah.
Everybody else okay?
Thank you.
So that's a week from tonight?
Yeah.
at 7:30 here. And Sarah, you'll take care of changing that on our website and all that. Great.
Okay, all right, okay, so workshop, the meeting, okay. And then to clarify on your email, Nan, regarding the budget book, because everybody got that email. You and Mary Beth met, and then you clarified what you were looking for, and it was more about the comment section at the end of when you opened it up, the comment section. So that's what you were talking about. So,
It was either justification or
just comments,
clarification.
right.
Yeah.
So, if anyone has any questions about any of that stuff, and wants further information included in the budget, please forward your questions to me. I will get them all together, compile a question, I'll get to Cindy so she can get it to us. We're looking at Tuesday, so, get through your things, if you still have questions. She's gonna answer the questions that was brought up the last time. If you have anything new, go through me, I'll get them to her in one whole email, so she's not inundated piecemeal. So, you are not getting the big budget book, so you're just gonna have to do it normally.
No, we wanted what we had last year, and I thought it was especially important for 3 new board members to see
Right,
that.
and I think the reason there was all the detail last year is because it was new to Cindy, and it was a new format, and, Mary Beth was new, so there was a lot of additional detail, and I think we highlighted what we thought, were the big changes this year. Going year over year is different because, what was different last year is not different this year, so you're not gonna highlight it because it's the things it was this year. So that may be why we thought there was more detail last year than there was this year. But, that could be why, but, anyway, so, go buy a set of weights because you're not getting those. I think that's it.
Okay, long range?
Yes, elementary school update, Cindy touched on it, the whole USDA funding kind of stuff, not until March. If people are interested in when the referendum date was gonna be, it's probably not until sometime in April at the earliest, because of that. I was at an impact meeting this week, and something interesting was brought up about additional acreage up at the new middle school, where if somehow it was decided that an elementary school could somehow go up there, and again, this is way down the road. But again, I wanted to get some clarification on it. Jim Ventris has informed us that the acreage up there really isn't anything that you could build on. And he certainly, everybody with questions should call him at once and pull up his phone. But he'd be happy to discuss anybody about that additional acreage if that was a concern. Additionally, last time we met, we reported that Mary Beth was going out to the different parent groups to get additional perspective on the 4th grade. She will continue to do that here this month. She's meeting with the PTO of the elementary school on February 20th. So it's great to talk about the calendar for next year. I think we're voting on it later, but just to provide some information on it. We stayed partially with the learning calendar, such as the April break being the 3rd week of April. We did stray away from the learning calendar as we decided to, again, start the school year on the Tuesday after Labor Day, as opposed to prior to Labor Day when the learning calendar recommended. Change was made to be sure that report cards, when they came out, aligned with parent-teacher conferences. Mary Beth, in making the calendar, was able to meet some of the teachers' requests for professional development days, and I think it's great because the kids get 3-day weekends. Let's see. Finally, Warren did meet with Mary Beth today, just for a review of the superintendent's goals. Mary Beth provided a comprehensive update, so the goals that she provided with by the board from last year. And it's a lot of information, and the conversation will obviously continue in regards to the detail and understanding of visuals. Do I have anything else? I don't have.
Sean, do we have common in-service days that are aligned with Learn? Do you know?
I can do, November 4th, which is the Glory All Day, is the common day with because most of the district has election day, so first have that off. And then March 2nd was the second Learn Day, so both of those align. We added a third day in October abutting the Wellness Day weekend, so that one is in addition, which was an option we had, we could add one, but we did not deviate from the they had in their calendar.
That allows our teachers, our certified people, to go to a host of workshops throughout the region. And I'm really glad that we had that. That was one of the main purposes of the common calendar. Any questions, other comments, questions for
Just
Sean?
for 13. We're voting on the calendar, and if everyone could just fill in the right years, because, you know, the Excel spreadsheet got a little confused. So we're gonna vote on it for the 14-15, and just make sure all your years line up. Just a reminder that the 15-16 year legislation has determined that boards won't have the flexibility to deviate from the calendar as we have this year. So if the board would like me to bring back any feedback to the region about maintaining some of that autonomy, I'd be happy to do that. Otherwise, moving forward, we will just adopt the regional calendar. And then just a point of information for anybody who's been keeping track. We've now had 4 snow days. Our last day of school for this year is June 17th. So we have 3 days that we can add to the end of the year before we begin to go into April vacation. So, cross your fingers and hope that this winter weather doesn't continue the trend that it has been following to this point.
Now, Learn starts before they do.
They do.
Anybody have any comments on that? God bless you. Anybody? It's nice to have your own membership to determine what your calendars will be. There are pluses and minuses, but in most cases, I think it should be up to the autonomy of the local district.
I think you can align your needs and stuff like that.
That's right. Right.
Well, it's a transportation thing, so if you're, we don't deal with it that much. So
it's like Griswold High School with all the kids coming in from all the towns. That's a good thing for them.
London and all that.
Not for us.
I know. That date's could change anyway, because not all districts are going to have the same one day.
Everybody's comfortable with keeping the autonomy.
Share that.
Personnel and negotiations.
We met this morning. Every June, we go through where we have to approve certain salary schedules that are non-union. And there are 2 salary schedules, work study students and summer student custodians, that fall on minimum wage. We have an exact dollar amount. We don't have language that says basically complying with the changes of state and federal laws. So before our consent agenda, I'll ask for a motion to amend the language so that as the minimum wages probably changes a couple of times, we don't have to keep on coming back to the board to go through that motion. The other thing we talked about is the early retirement package proposal. And we'll discuss that in executive session to strategize and kind of lay out a plan. That's it.
Comments, questions? Thank you. Transportation?
We met on 30th. As Craig said, we discussed the closure of Grade 2.
appears to be only one bus that's probably gonna be affected. Marie's gonna meet with the bus driver, come up with options. When we meet again, she'll present it to the subcommittee, and we'll make sure we get it out there so the public knows what's gonna be changed and what the road closure is gonna do to. We also discussed.
You guys should just apply to be a bus driver.
Send me your application. We also discussed the issues that we had back in November. Some people had concerns about the speed of the buses. I believe Nancy, we talked to Maria, and Beth also talked to Maria. She has addressed concerns with the bus drivers. So that's taken care of. And then we also discussed the possible need for cameras on the bus, security on the inside. And it was very good to hear that there was a good number of bus drivers who were there at the meeting. And to a person, they all felt that it was not needed, that the bus was excellent. They had no concerns whatsoever about the kids and needing a security camera inside buses compared to other towns where they mentioned that they did have concerns about any cameras. But they did mention that it might be beneficial to have cameras on the outside of buses. So you keep an eye on the cars and stuff that drive by when the buses will stop, let the kids off the bus. So Maria's going to take a look at that and see what kind of place that would be to install cameras. And that was it.
Comments, questions for transportation?
Am I incorrect?
Yes.
I get that stuff. Does not, if a bus driver takes down the plate, the marker number of cars who fail to observe their lights, isn't that basically enough for police to take action against the driver?
The normal protocol is not where the bus driver would call Nichols, Nichols would call the police.
No.
What is it?
Sorry.
What do you do?
The plate gets reported to, usually I'll just speak for East Haddam. We would report it to Marie. Marie is supposed to fill out a sheet and report that to DMV. We've never, as a bus driver in the 13 years that I've been driving, have ever heard of a follow-up on a license plate of what the consequences were. Whether they got a ticket, supposedly they get a written warning in the mail. But for every red light you run, it's like a $450 fine per bus.
Are you a bus driver?
Yes, I am.
To my knowledge, DMV, those calls will be forwarded to the police and the police take action. The report may go to DMV because DMV handles a portion, but the police will enforce those, and they should be the ones. So it should be going to the police.
I've been in a cruiser when the call was coming in. My husband is 21 years in law enforcement, and we get a call from a bus driver in town, and automatically go and get the vehicle and get the ticket out. Ticket can be issued for 1 year. They don't take the report from.
I was just going to say, what Marie said was that she reports it to the DMV and then nothing happens.
What Marie says and what she does are two different things.
Excuse me, you're out of order.
Sorry.
If I can, that was the reason I stated it as I did.
Right.
Because that's the procedure I thought was what was used by bus companies, which is to make a direct contact with the driver once they get the marker.
She's been in the business for a long, long time, and you think that she would know the proper protocol.
I'm just saying.
I mean, I can.
That's why she doesn't want cameras in the buses.
Follow that up with Marie in March, and we're going to discuss the issue.
Good idea. Any other comments or questions? Communication, Mr. Perry?
Also, this morning.
Snowed.
Yeah, it's going to be snowed. Our form's going to be an informational form. The date's not yet totally confirmed, but we're shooting for March 18th. during the informational forum, we still have a lot of planning to do. We're going to have our next meeting February 25th. And we're going to basically question and answer session for the board. Anybody that's any questions or answers, talk about the events, anything from now to the end of the year. So we're